What's going on, everybody? Welcome on back to the channel. For this video, we're going to be going over the game mode Dominion, and I'll be giving you some tips and pointers on how exactly to increase your play and skill level. For starters, what is Dominion? Dominion is a point-based objective mode. In order to score points, you must knock your opponent off the objective, secure the area, and then hold them off as you gradually gain meter towards a full point over time. Now, once you have 3 points, the enemy team can actually contest the objective, stalling you from getting your final point. If you manage to knock them all off again, then you win. Keep in mind that you do not gain additional points for knocking out your opponents, so getting the most KOs isn't always the most important thing to worry about. Universal tips and advice for Dominion. As I tell everyone, survivability is far more important than your combat experience. Not to say that combat experience isn't important, however, it comes second in this mode. We'll begin breaking down the two topics. Survivability. When it comes down to survivability, knowing your legend to legend along with map interactions will be key and will play a huge factor in how well you are able to stall the point for your team. Let's talk about resetting your jumps, for example. Getting hit isn't always a bad thing. It more so depends on when you get hit and by what. Each time you get hit while in the air, it will reset your jump, allowing you to jump again while still being airborne. If you are purposely looking for this interaction, then you are able to stall the point for your team much longer, as you will continue going higher and higher in the air, making it harder for your opponents to knock you off the point. Here are some prime examples of stalling tactics. As you can see, these interactions allow me to stall in the air much longer than I normally would if I were to not get hit. Now, another important thing to note is how vulnerable you are during this mode. Practically any action that you do will cause you to be vulnerable to a large variety of incoming attacks. So as I mentioned before, you don't always have to fight. Sometimes doing one attack, be it an air auto to save your teammate, or even not attacking at all, will be the better choice in allowing you to hold the point a bit longer. Combat experience. On the topic of combat experience, the first thing I'd suggest for everyone to do would be to become quite familiar with duels. You don't have to become super good at duels, however, play duels enough to get to the point to where you are comfortable with knowing what is safe and what isn't safe on each legend. Learning how to dodge specific things or even counter/interrupt specific things can definitely take you a long way. Upon getting more familiar with the entirety of the roster and their move list, you are now able to transfer this knowledge back over to Dominion, but on a much larger scale, given that now you aren't only focusing on one opponent, rather than now focusing on 3 opponents. When it comes to this chaotic atmosphere, a lot of players will actually go for the obvious things. If you see a Peter, 9 times out of 10 they will do air skill. If you see a Ravi, 9 times out of 10 they're going to do ground skill. Knowing the base premise of obvious actions for these legends and how to counter them will help you in avoiding these attacks in sequence, resulting in you being able to come out the victor in these engagements. A quote I always say that is key to this topic as well is, "The slower you take things, the more you will see." Touching up on something mentioned about survivability, regarding you being vulnerable given almost at any action you make, this also applies to your opponents. Playing it cool, playing the neutral will a lot of times allow you to notice when your teammates may be getting punished for something, allowing you to then save them by interrupting the person that was attacking them. Keep note though that now you become vulnerable to one of their teammates and the cycle continues. This is where heavy evaluation comes into play in the decisions you make. Now, something that is extremely important is knowing your role. Say you're playing as Alice and the enemy team has a flare. You should not be trying to air auto their Cindy and Ravi, rather than playing it cool and hard focusing on throwing mines at their flare. Why? Because if you have a Peter and a Kaiser on your team, you being Alice would mean that you specialize best in dealing with their ranged unit. Being able to recognize these things when fighting various comps will help the team tenfold. Don't allow stats to get to you regarding damage, point time, or even getting MVP. Just because the game didn't mark you as an MVP doesn't mean that you weren't an MVP in your own right. Remember that. Alright, now before we fully wrap up the video, I'll be showcasing some small details to keep in mind when playing Dominion that can carry over to each map and all of the legends. That'll wrap it up for my tips and advice. Be sure to like, comment, engage, and share this on every single social media platform that you can possibly think of. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you guys around.